Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As you may have heard, there's been a recent run on guns and ammunition. I just wanted to let you know that Guns Etc. is in a 10,200 square foot building which holds a lot of guns. So Guns Etc. is open and has a lot of product. Or you can go to gunsetc.com. That's gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologue, please subscribe to our channel using 960 The Patriot. Well, yes, it is, and welcome back. Thursday, April 9th, 2020. It is a delight right off the bat in the top of this show to welcome to our show one of the most admirable men in America, a hero of mine, someone I respect a great deal, and that is Dr. Ben Carson. He is the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Dr. Carson, welcome to the show and welcome to the airwaves of Phoenix.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you.
Thank you for being with us. The CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which was the big first piece of legislation that was passed in the midst of this pandemic, this virus, actually gives a goodly amount of money to your department, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, to protect and help those who are financially struggling, and of course some 3+ million families in public housing. Tell us how that money is being administered and how you intend to use it further.
Well, the first tranche of the money has already been designated, $2 billion to assist states, communities, and nonprofits through the CDBG program. And then there's another billion that's going through the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, particularly aimed at helping the homeless. And then there's another $63.7 million. Which is going to help Americans with compromised immune systems. There's $200 million for Indian housing block grants. And, the key thing is that, we're trying to disseminate the money very, very quickly because people are hurting right now. Yeah. There's a lot of people who basically live from paycheck to paycheck or maybe two paychecks, and then they're in big trouble. And we have obviously moved to guard people in terms of foreclosures and evictions, and we'll continue to work very hard because what we recognize is that all we have to do is bridge this gap. The fundamentals of the economy were strong before this happened. Right. They'll be strong after this is over. But if we let the gap last too long and you destroy the economic infrastructure, it becomes much more difficult.
I was thinking about that just the other day, about all the economic hardship that has come our way over the last 3 to 4 weeks, Dr. Carson. And it dawned on me, thank goodness we had such a robust economy going into this, sort of a cushion or a mattress, if you will, that would help us bear this a little bit better. That's true, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If we'd had a bad economy, we'd be toast, quite frankly.
Yeah, right.
But I think obviously we have to be very concerned about health issues, and we are. And the task force has been working overtime, to look after the health, and the people have cooperated with the recommendations. And that's why we're going to see a pretty dramatic downshift on that curve. Sure. This is great news, actually. But, what we have to decide is which course do we want to take after that? Do we want to wait until every trace of virus is gone before we go back to work? Or do we want to start using logic and common sense to introduce people back into the workforce? We have rapid testing now for antibodies. So, we can tell if there's somebody who probably has significant immunity. Send those people back. Send essential workers back. But you still have to do it in an intelligent way. Maybe they still need to wear a mask. They still have to, observe the social distancing, the hand washing. But we just have to do this in a logical way, recognizing that we can do a lot of damage to everybody economically, and more people will die than will die from the virus. We don't want the cure to be worse than the disease, as the president said.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Carson, and I'm so glad you're talking about that, because I wanted to ask you, about you obviously serve as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. A lot of people know you as Dr. Carson. You're a neurosurgeon, a very well acclaimed neurosurgeon. Can I ask you about a different part of the brain that's involved here, if that's the right vernacular, which is mental health? I'm worried about that and the mental health consequences of some of this. The kinds of things that lead to depression, suicide ideation, substance abuse, domestic violence. I worry about that when we talk about cures worse than the disease. I wonder if you had a thought.
That stress is a killer. There's no question about that. And just think about it. If you're sitting quietly in a room and everything is peaceful, and suddenly into that room walks a tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger hasn't touched you.
Yeah.
But what happens to your body?
Yeah.
You know, your heart rate accelerates, your blood pressure goes up, your pupils begin to dilate, your bladder begins to spasm. I mean, all kinds of things happen just from the mental input of you seeing that tiger come in. Now, imagine if you've got that kind of thing going on a regular basis in your life, the damage that it can cause, and it affects your endocrine system as well. So your whole body is negatively impacted by chronic stress.
Now add unemployment, right, for those that lost their jobs, and you've got a terrible toxic confluence, don't you?
Absolutely. We do need to be concerned about that as well.
Dr. Carson, a lot of people, and it's a good thing and a not good thing at the same time, a lot of people aren't fully aware of what public housing authorities are and do, or what the public housing authority in any given place does. You spoke about the people who have, can live for 3 weeks on a paycheck, or some people can live only week to week. What's the distance between someone who's in public housing, public assisted housing, and someone who's not? How does someone make it into public housing?
Well, you have to have a low income, compared to the area medium income to qualify.
Right.
And we're only able to assist about a quarter of the people who actually would qualify in terms of their income. But the government makes up the difference between what the person can pay. They pay like 30% of their income, and the government pays the difference to get you up to the level of the actual rental unit. So a lot of landlords actually like to have government-assisted people because they know for sure they're going to get
covered up to a certain percent, right. But we don't think about this when we think about hospital overcrowding, or we think about other needs being overcrowded. We don't often think about public housing being overcrowded, and the rush that long-term unemployment could put on your department.
No, we don't. But one of the things that I'm thinking seriously about is, because of the extra money that's been allocated through the CARES Act, we may be able to finally put an end to homelessness.
Good.
I've been talking about this for a couple of years now,
sir.
About the potential for epidemics and things like this, but you don't get a lot of attention until something like this comes along.
No kidding.
So this may be our opportunity, because in a country like ours, there's no reason to have a bunch of people living that way. And what we really need to start concentrating on is, how do we get people out of poverty?
Right.
How do we get people out of dependency? We can't just do things that promote it.
Right. And when you think about that, I always think about what a former employer of mine is, and a predecessor of yours at the department, Jack Kemp, used to say, when you think about HUD, you have to think about how we are operating in the midst of the symbol of the American dream, home ownership, right? You want to inspire oxygen and seed corn into these inner cities and these urban areas that don't have much home ownership, right?
That's correct, because the average renter has a net worth of about $5,000, and the average homeowner $200,000. That's a 40-fold difference. And that actually was part of the impetus that drove us to the housing crisis, because people start saying, we got to put people in housing, no matter whether they can afford them or not.
Right.
That's not doing anybody a favor.
Right.
They lose their house, they lose their credit, and they lose their future possibilities. So like in the black community, we have less homeowners now than we had before that. So you've got to be really careful the way you do these things.
You were talking, Dr. Carson, in the last 30 seconds or so that we have left, you were talking a little bit about what are the criteria we must look at before we can start resuming some more degrees of normalcy in our society. Yeah. What are you looking for as a doctor and as a cabinet secretary?
Well, we want to make sure that we have a consistent decline on that curve, that it's not just a blip, that we're definitely going down.
Good.
That makes all the difference. And we want to make sure that we have the right kind of tests that are available.
Great.
Testing for the virus and testing for the antibodies. We have that widely disseminated, and that curve's going down. We'll be fine.
Good. And I want to alert our audience that you have a great website on this, too, hud.gov/coronavirus. Dr. Ben Carson, you're a hero to me and so many in our audience. We love you here in Phoenix. Thank you for all your great public service.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Night.
Carry on.